Let's go to our next guest, which I am so honored to bring on. Elizabeth Joyce is an astrologer and a psychic. Her bio, well, it reads long, and I want you to hear from Elizabeth herself. Such an interesting lady. She has a new book out. We're going to talk about her book, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. Everyday human life and what's behind the scenes and some of the things we don't see and maybe the reasons why we feel certain ways. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get Elizabeth on the line. Elizabeth, good evening. Welcome to Fringe Radio and AM 630.
Well, thank you, Pat. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you here.
I was out to American Fork once to visit my sister, and I do love Salt Lake City. It's a beautiful place.
It is. It is. It really is. I've lived here for 20 years now. I'm a transplant, as I mentioned. And it is. To get up every day and look at those mountains is still, it's breathtaking.
And I spent some time in Park City as well, and of course you're not far from Idaho, and that beautiful area is just gorgeous.
Oh, it is. It is. And with the winter well, as much as I love summer, winter is setting in real quick. We've got a beautiful weekend, but it's going to turn very cold in the next day or two.
Yes, it is.
And snow's coming. But to look at those mountains when they're all covered with snow and they're white-capped and the blue skies, it is. It's truly amazing. It's a beautiful sight. And like I say, it's awe-inspiring to look at it. Going to work every day, I get a chance when it's clear. And it's unbelievable to see it.
Well, the fantastic thing, I don't know if your travelers know it, but if you drive from Park City down to Salt Lake, you get that view.
Yeah.
It's awe-inspiring. It's as pretty as California or Hawaii anytime. It really is. Of course, it's a different kind of beauty, but it's still gorgeous.
It is. It is. And until we get the inversions, Elizabeth, until we get those, and go up to, you take I-80 up to Park City, and you can't even see the valley sometimes when we get the pollution trapped in.
Oh, yes, that does happen, of course.
it looks just like it looks like dirty clouds, but there's a whole city underneath. Anyway, I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. You've got a bio that reads amazing, and I'd just like to hear it from you and let our listeners know a little bit about you and your work and what you do.
Well, I've been working a long time in metaphysics, and I just feel that it's wonderful and good to help people open up their hearts and to learn about patience, discussion, talking things through, and what love is. Mm-hmm. And love is embracing and understanding another person's point of view as well as your own. It's not a battle.
Right.
But I was born one of two sets of identical twins, and my sister in American Fork is the second set. She was the firstborn, actually, of the family. I'm the second set. Sorry about that. And we grew up in Bergen County, New Jersey, and I had two boys, and I was working along, and I did not really know about the word psychic or tarot cards or spiritual awareness until my children were pretty much on their way, and I was working, and I had a head-on car collision with a drunk driver hit me head on when I was taking my son to a party, and I had the out-of-body experience, and I went out of my body and started to go towards the light, as many people have. But my husband had died the year before, and our stepson had been murdered, and they both came and appeared before me and sent me back, and they said, you have to write, you have to write. After that, and coming through all that, I started having a recurring dream about a body flying out of the roof of a house, and I heard, your aunt died. She's in Houston, Texas, and of course my aunt was in New England, where my mother's side of the family was New England. So I didn't understand the dream, and I really thought I was going crazy because, Pat, it came every night for 3 weeks. It would not stop. So I called a friend who had helped my children and I at one point through their adjustment period, and I said, I need to talk to you because I think there's really something wrong, and maybe you know somebody you could send me to, because she was a child psychologist. And I went to see her, and I started to tell her about the dream, and she turned white. And I said, what is it? And she said, you don't know me, but I'm from Houston, Texas, and my aunt is missing. Wow. And she is missing because of the Houston oil well explosion that just happened. This was in the early 80s. And I said, oh, my goodness, I can show you where the body is. And I drew a picture. And I drew the house, and I drew the screen door on crooked with the hinge broken, and I drew the trailer park, and I drew the oil wells, and I showed her where the body was in a pile of weeds behind the house. And they found the body in 3 hours.
Amazing.
Well, we both got scared. I mean, can you imagine that really happening and what you would feel? We were in awe, but we were scared. It's almost like seeing a live ghost.
Right.
So we both prayed for a teacher, and, of course, one came, because when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that is what got me on the road to becoming the professional that I have become. That was my trigger.
When you had the experience with your husband that was gone and your child, was it kind of surreal to you at first? Was it maybe, hey, am I dreaming, or
No, not at all. It was real.
Right.
It was real. They were in front of me, and Ronnie was in a blue light, Joe was in a red light, and I was reaching for them, and they sent me back. I died 3 times in the ambulance, and my heart stopped, so I don't remember too much of it. I just remember that vision, and I've had many, many before and many, many since, because I was born psychic, and I was born with this ability to see through the veil somehow, and who knows why.
Yeah. Well,
So then I worked with Louise Hay, and I worked with Deepak Chopra, and I worked with a lot of other people, and I meditated, and I started to go and learn, and I learned as much as I could. I worked very closely with the New Jersey Metaphysical Society for years, and then I began to write, and I began to teach myself as well.
There's so many people that, as you call it, it's a gift. It seems like there's a lot of people that have this, but to develop it takes so much, and that's what you do.
We all do. It is a part of us that hasn't been accepted. Everything's been covered up because it isn't anything that you can see, touch, or feel. So I'm sure you can sing in the shower, but when Barbara Streisand sings in the shower, everybody knows it. It's the same thing. It's a gift. It's a talent, just like playing the piano or dancing is, or art. And as you develop it and work with it, it grows stronger for you. And that's why now we have so many meditators and people taking yoga. And we have found that doing these practices helps us with our heart, helps us with our blood flow, and helps us keep well. And that's important.
And it's tough in this world, Elizabeth. You know, a couple listeners actually sent in some stuff to get your thoughts about, as I mentioned before we started, these terror attacks in Paris. I mean, evil at its best. The things that humans can do to other humans is just
yes, I did
unthinkable.
Hear you say that. I predicted it.
Really?
In writing, and I feel very bad. We are in a time that started on the new moon this month, and this comes around every 3 to 5 years. And we're in what's called the dark days for 2 weeks. And it's just an astrological thing that we go through, and you never know what's going to happen. And I had a class on Thursday night, and I told them all that we were in the dark days and that this is something we were all going to have to live through, both worldwide as well as individual. And, of course, the Paris thing happened the next morning. But I predicted Paris, I predicted London and Rome. And it's funny because I thought it would start in January, but it came so fast because I was writing my New Year's predictions, and I think we're going to have a lot more of these terrorist attacks over the next couple of years until somebody gets a handle on whoever did it, including ISIS.
What drives a person above and beyond? I mean, from a let's step out of the human being role. What drives a person to do these type of things? I mean, what type of person does it take to do this?
I think it's training. I think it's training, and I think it's shock and how your belief system is built from the time you're young. Don't forget, we choose our parents. We choose where we're born, and everybody has a level. And these seem to be low-level people, of course, that don't have regard for human souls. They really think they're doing something religious in a sense because they're getting even with anybody that isn't Muslim. Now, I know that people are writing that we shouldn't blame them And I'm not saying that we should or shouldn't, but it is training. You know, a child that's brought up in the ghettos of New York that sees people shooting guns and Uzis all the time is going to be used to a gun
Right.
by the time they're 12. But a child that's brought up, say, in Salt Lake City with a wonderful family, traits that they teach, or in New England where you're taught about manners and you're taught also to walk a narrow path, then that's foreign to them.
Yeah. Do you feel that some of these people, like these terrorists, do you feel that in their mind, and you might have answered this already, they feel they're doing nothing wrong? They feel they're doing the right
That's
thing.
correct. It's training. It's their value system. And unfortunately, we're having more and more people that are brought up that way. You know, when they were over in Afghanistan, the children were as dangerous as the adults because of how they were trained.
Right.
And it's all from fear, and it's all from darkness, and it's all from, I want to say the word hate, but I don't want it to be misunderstood either, but hate of the light. Let me just say that. You could not tell these people that there was light and that there was wellness because they just wouldn't believe you. They have no proof of that.
Right.
They haven't experienced an opening of the heart.
Yeah. One of our listeners from California, Carol, writes in and says, Elizabeth, how does the latest terror attack seem to you? Do you feel that this is a start of a new campaign? And I think you might have answered that already with some things coming down in other places.
No, I don't think it's the start of a new campaign. I think it's ongoing, and I think that this, to me, we're in the middle of cleansing. To me, we're in the middle of changing the world and how we respond to each other, and we're going to learn more love, more patience, and we're going to learn how to help the ones that can't help themselves a little bit better. So this is focusing on what we need to clean up. And I hope they can clean it up, because these people have an awful lot of money.
Yeah.
And they can disappear into the woodwork, and then nothing happens until the next incident. And, of course, I'm only talking as a citizen. I'm not talking as anybody in any secret service.
Right, right.
But we are going to have more problems because this has to be eradicated from the earth. So I think that if you're looking at the spiritual sense, that we're putting a light on darkness and we're going to try to eradicate it.
You think some of these people are changeable? Or you think it
Maybe not, but I think the people that are watching and hearing about it are changeable. And there is a natural law that says there has to be destruction before reconstruction. Even when you build a house, you have to tear up the ground and put in a foundation.
Right, right.
So we have to realign. We've lost our values somehow in the last 30 years. We've lost a lot of our values, and people are not being educated the way they need to be. They're not being trained and taught the way they need to be. And some of our basic family ideals have all but disappeared.
Well, it's sad, but in today's society, it's about greed. It really is. It's about who can have the biggest and the best, and family values are really lost quickly.
Yeah, they are. I call it the me generation.
Yeah.
The me generation down the road is going to become the we generation. We have to. We have to. It is the only way. You know something? Pat? We live on the planet Earth. If we destroy this planet, we have no place to go.
Right.
Except to hell in a handbasket.
Right.
So we live on the planet Earth. We must take care of that. We must understand that we are like others, and I would like to see the desire of people be for good. I'd like to contribute to the world. I'd like to make the world a better place. I want to love my neighbor and my children, and I want to live a happy and fruitful life. Because there's so much in this world that's beautiful.
Right.
So much in so many areas. And we have talented people, and we have people that can do things that are unbelievable, that are just wonderful. When you see somebody dance a ballerina or play an instrument or even beautiful voices, look what we have.
Yeah.
We have warmth and love and growth and tenderness, and we are now just shattering it. Yeah. But we can get back to it again.
We need to. Do you think Elizabeth, that and I've asked this question of many of my guests, do you think that someday the higher power, whatever that may be, will give everybody a sign to maybe kind of the gatekeeper will give a sign to everybody to say, look, you got to straighten your act out.
They have. You know how the first sign that we've had in this century is the book I wrote called The New Spiritual Chakras and How to Use Them. That's going to be the greatest book written in this century. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because we're bringing back the ability to build our body, our minds, and our spirits closer to Creator. And that is by working your chakras, and the ones that are above the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, 11th, and 12th. And it's all spelled out. And what that does, as you begin to grow, you eliminate your hate and your anger and your prejudice and your judgment, and you become neutral, warm, and caring. And that's the first sign. And I think that there's going to be more. But I do not think it's going to come the way people think it's going to come. I think it will be very different.
And people have to be first of all, accepting to it and work towards it, work on
That's
things
right.
to make it better.
And the work is important, Pat, because people are lazy and they want everybody to do it for them.
I know.
And when I teach my classes, I go, wait a minute, we are not at McDonald's. We are here developing ourselves. Some people can go 25 years of daily meditating before they get any kind of a sign, and some people don't get it in the lifetime they're in.
Right.
Because they don't believe in reincarnation and they don't believe that life continues. Guess what? Surprise.
Yeah. Well, and I think the older we get, and I've made this statement many times, but I think when we're younger, death does scare us quite a bit. But the older we get, not that I'm looking to check out tomorrow by any means, but I know in my heart, and I think a lot of others do, that there is more to it, that this is just a stepping stone along the path, and it's a learning experience, and I think we need to enjoy while we're here. So many people will say, well, this is hell on earth, and just wait till you get to... I believe that this whole thing is a learning experience for many, many go-arounds, many, many times.
The only reason that we have hell on earth is because that's what we think. Therefore, those are the decisions that we make. Everything comes from decision. This I have learned the hard way. What you decide, who you associate with, what you train for, what you do makes your life. You make your life, and you can change your life. And I know that people get discouraged because it doesn't happen fast enough, but you get tested. I wrote another book last year called Seeding and Nurturing, The Garden of Your Soul. And that describes the tests and the spiritual challenges that we have to go through before we can get to where we want to be.
Right.
And it's purification as well.
Let's talk about your work a little bit and your book. First of all, for those people that are out there listening, if people want to get help from you or work with you, do you offer that across the country?
Oh, absolutely. I work all around the world. I've been doing readings for 30 years, and now, of course, I can work with Skype, which is really great. But I do have a 24-hour answering service, and that's 201-934-8986. And the website is new-visions.com. And if you go to Psychic Services, you'll see that I offer many different things, if you would like.
And
plus, all of my books are up there.
And I've been on your site. I've gone through it. There's a lot there, and you get a wealth of information just going through what's there, just what you offer on your site and information that you offer.
Well, it's been a long time and growing. I was one of the first ones that had a website. My first website was in 1994.
Wow.
And, of course, I have it up there since then. But we do have something called a universal body, and the universal body is a part of us, just like our hair and eyes are, and it's something that we need to work with and develop. Now, Edgar Cayce talked about this a lot, as well as Ruth Montgomery and other people that have been teachers in the past. And to learn about it and to learn where it comes from and what it is and why we don't have to be just trapped on this earth is a wonderful thing. It is challenging to work along with the energies, just like it's challenging for me to sit here on a Tuesday, which I did last week, and know that we were going to have some kind of a tragedy in the world, and the frustration is that you can't call anybody to tell them and put a stop to it.
Right. You just know it's coming.
You just know it's coming, and you can't put a stop to it. And that's happened a few too many times for me. But nonetheless, you can start putting your thoughts there and sending light there and hoping that you can divert some of it with that kind of an action. And if you get a group together and meditate, you can change. You can make a change.
Now, your new book. Now, what's the name of the new book, Elizabeth?
The New Spiritual Chakras and How to Work with Them. That's the latest one. That just came out on October 19th.
Oh, congratulations. I was going through some of the questions, some of the little talking things here, and the fifth dimension. Can you talk a little bit about dimensions and the fifth dimension?
Yes, I wrote another book called Ascension, Accessing the Fifth Dimension, that breaks down the dimensions, the third dimension, the fourth dimension, and the fifth dimension. And as you read the book, you process inside yourself, and there's a lot of realizations that happen, and you can tell where you are. That's what I like about that book. It describes them all. So the fourth dimension is, we're in the fourth dimension now because we are caring about others, we're caring about how people think. We've changed the way that we bring up our children. We don't like bullying anymore. We don't like spankings. We don't like hitting somebody with a switch or slapping them across the face. We realize how traumatic and dangerous those things are. But if you went back to the 1920s, that's what they did. That was their belief system. That's how they were trained. And, of course, they used to say, spare the rod and spoil the child, and children should be seen and not heard. That was as we were coming into the 19th century. Mm-hmm. But it's certainly not that way in the 21st century. So we've grown a long way. We've come out of the third dimension, which is see, touch, and feel, and I don't believe in anything else except for what I can see, touch, and feel. We go into the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is a realization that there's more. Oh, my goodness, there's more to this than the human eye. There is prayer, there is helping people, there's thinking of somebody's name and having the phone ring, and maybe I can do something. What can I do? Maybe I can tune in psychically and help somebody. Maybe I should call Laura and see if she's all right, and then I call her and she has a fever and she needs me to bring her some soup, that type of thing. So that's the fourth dimension. The fifth dimension is beyond that. The fifth dimension is just starting to come on this planet, and it came in, the ability for us to grow to that spiritual awareness came in on December 20th, 2012. We have a new energy from the center of the galaxy called the double helix, and now we can access that energy. It's always been there, but it's never been open for us to access. And we access that energy by developing the new spiritual chakras. And if you go back to Tibet and you remember that the Tibetans used to sit in a cave and eat half a bowl of rice a day and meditate,
right?
That's what they were doing. They were working with the spiritual chakras, and they were holding the energy for the planet Earth. But now we can all do it, and I am thrilled.
It is. Well, again, I have to be honest with you and say that I just myself, Elizabeth, I haven't had any well, maybe I've had some psychic experiences, but I can't point any out for sure. But I truly believe, and I know in my heart, that there is more to this whole thing than me sitting here talking to you right now. I mean, there is so much to it. And I think the big thing is just to be accepting of it and open-minded of it is probably
Pat,
a big step.
You must have a gut feeling reaction. You must have been told that something is right or wrong. Well, there's your sensitivity, and you can develop it more. We all have it. Nobody is spared it. This is part of life. However, what are we going to do with it, and how are we going to develop it? So you're saying you haven't developed yours yet. When is your birthday?
October 15th.
Okay. So you probably, although you should be either artistic-minded or legal-minded, one or the other. And you also could be a writer with that birth date. But you just need to meditate. If you haven't had the experiences, my question to you is, do you have a daily spiritual practice? And a daily spiritual practice doesn't have to be all day. It can be 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night. In the morning, you open up and you say, thank you, God, for putting your love and energy into my body to go through the day, and may I carry that wherever I go. That's hooking into the energies. And then at night, you think about your day. Did you have a good day? Did you have an upset during the day? How did you bring that upset to yourself? And you have 24 hours to make amends. And that goes for any kind of a loss or any kind of a change. Right. You have 24 hours to accept it, to do what you can to heal it, or to say I'm sorry, or to talk out with somebody who's angry at you why they're angry at you. And if you live your life in the moment, if you live your life that way, you will find that your gifts will open more.
It takes those first steps, though, to get you there.
Yes, it's purposeful. You know, we have free will. Everybody talks about, well, we have free will. Well, we do have free will, but if we're not taught how to access our free will and bring it up to higher levels, how can we know? It's all taught. It's education. You asked me about Paris. It's the same thing. These people are taught to believe that way. They're now taking children 5 years old and older, and they're training them. They're training them to kill, to shoot a gun, and then it's an honor to die for God. That's what they're doing. So they're learning this, and it's very sad.
Well, yeah, because it's got to take quite a bit to undo that if it can ever be undone.
That's correct. That's correct. We call them mind damaged, but I call them limited and they're in their own darkness because they've never been loved. They've never been cared for. In most countries, mothers love their children. They hold them. They care for them, and they would never allow them to have that kind of training. But there are other countries where women don't have any say, where they take the child right out of their arms, and where they force them to live in a certain austere, astute way that only has to do with darkness and survival, as you know.
Right. I feel sorry for those people that are caught up in that because sadly, they have no control over that, and hopefully someday they will see some good things and be able to overcome it, but a lot of damage could get done between now and then.
Yes, destruction before reconstruction. I do think that in their next lifetime, because these kids kill themselves, you know,
right?
That they'll see the light, that they'll come up another step or two. And how can we? We have not found the way yet, Pat, to educate the children of the world.
Right.
We haven't found a way. Everybody's fighting for who's the better school or who's the worst or who's the best, and let's change this and let's change that. Nobody's focusing on healing. They're focusing on getting what they can for them. We just talked about that, remember?
Right. No, exactly. Fringe Radio for Hour 2. Our guest is Elizabeth Joyce. Again, Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday night.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
And sharing your work with us. You know, like we said, going into the commercial about how, you know, these dealing with people from a very young age, or people at a very young age that are, call it what you want, brainwashed, taught a certain way, experience no love, and you know, going forward, how that can change. I think there's a lot of things that people need to do in their own life. Maybe we're not as extreme as some of these children are taught to be at a young age. But again, to get a little bit up on the game, if you will, if I can use that term, parents need to be more loving, more caring, more open, and teach some of our young people that there's a little bit more than everyday day-to-day life. There's more out there, and at a younger age, let them start to explore that and think about that.
If you think that everything is taught, which I do, then of course negativity is taught. Negativity is created by your thoughts and your actions. And I do agree with you. We've got to have more unity. I know that back in the 50s or the 40s of the 1900s, that we had a lot of ugly things. We had World War II. But we also didn't have the awareness that we have now about what you just discussed, that the training of our kids is so important. I remember when the Beatles came in the 60s, and something else came in the 60s. It was called the latchtree children, the latchkey. So the parents weren't home because we had to have two people working to make enough money to support the family.
Right.
So the kids would let themselves in the house. And that in itself is where some danger and upsetting can be created. So I think that we need more hobbies. I think we need more things for kids to do. The schools, in a sense, have broken down because of lack of funds. They've taken away a lot of the extracurricular, the music and the plays and the ski clubs and the tennis clubs. They're just not in existence anymore. Everybody has a iPad, and they're all doing their texting, and they're not communicating
Right.
with each other.
Exactly.
And that's not being monitored correctly either. And the reason that it isn't is because the parents don't have the skills and the knowledge of the technology to be able to monitor it. They just can't be bothered. The older you get, maybe you get more spiritual, but you also get more resistance to learning something new, right?
Right.
And it's a whole new world.
Well, and you've really hit it on the head. I think that a lot of parents today, sadly, the parent figure is not the parent anymore. It is the iPad. It is the Facebook. It is the Twitter. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of that in moderation, but so many of these young kids, they get home from school. What do? They run in the bedroom. The computer goes on. The bag of chips opens up. The soda opens,
Yep.
and they're there. It's a babysitter.
And there's nobody there saying, let's go and do something creative.
Right.
So even if they went and learned yoga, it would be good. Or let's go and let's play baseball in the backyard. Let's go out and learn how to play lacrosse or learn how to sew a dress. Go over to your girlfriends and sew a dress together. They don't do that anymore. It's not good enough.
Yeah. Or like my mom would do, say, get out in the backyard and get the mower running.
That gives you a focus. It certainly does. And that's discipline. Discipline comes from the word disciple.
Yeah.
And discipline is important if you want to grow spiritually, and it's important to bring order and regularity to your world, because order and regularity is what babies grow on. Right. Order and regularity. Everything you can trust. You don't have to have sudden explosions. You don't have to have upsets. The father's not going to come in drunk and beat up the mother. You're going to have order and regularity and respect for each other. The way that we judge, look at the abuse, look at the battering, and look at what is said on the Internet.
Yeah.
My goodness gracious, did you ever see anything like it? And the swear words and the nudity that we have now, there's no respect for the human body, and they think that that's the way to be.
Right.
That's the way you're supposed to be. Back in the 50s, it wasn't like that. Now, I'm not saying we need to go back there, but I'm saying that we could bring some of those values forward.
Well, and I think also some of the kids of today, sadly, if you're busy around the house and have chores and if mom and dad are making sure you do things, kind of when I was a kid, we didn't have time to get in trouble because we had too many things going on.
That's true. And that could be true in good places where they have good education. That is true. I know I'm in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and we're very organized here, and everybody cares about their kids, and they do the best they can.
Right.
And there's places where if you're out in Iowa and you've got a farm, you've got to go and milk the cows and bring the corn in or whatever you have to do.
Sure.
There's always something.
One of our listeners from, I believe it's Pittsburgh, she's a good listener of ours, writes in, she says, Elizabeth, what can a person do if they get negative messages and don't want them? How does one turn that information off and tune it out?
Well, that's a good question, and I like it. And the reason that it does come in, as Louise Hay would teach, is because of what your belief system is from an early age. And you have to say, thank you for sharing, and start your affirmations. I wrote a book called Psychic Attack, Are You a Victim?, that does tell you how to do that. There's also another book that's a wonderful book by Louise Hay. It's called You Can Heal Your Life. And she explains in there step by step how you can achieve changing your inner thought system. It's called Your Inner Talk. And you change it slowly over a period of time by changing the thought into something positive. If you stop and take the time, Like if you're walking up a hill, oh, it's so hard to walk up this hill. I'm sweating. I'll never get there. To say I'm walking up this hill easily and quickly. I'll arrive to the top as soon as I can. I'm walking up this hill, and that changes. It changes your environment. It changes your vibration. When I get up in a day and I have too many appointments or too many things to do, I usually take 5 minutes to think about the day and say there will be plenty of time to achieve all of my requirements today, and I will do it easily and quickly, and then I start my day, and it changes the environment. It changes the inner fear into something positive and doable, and it really does work.
So a thing there is when we get overwhelmed as humans, we've got to sometimes kick it back a notch and take that overwhelmness out of the picture, because it seems like it sets in so heavy. It does with me. I get overwhelmed.
Yeah,
too quick.
and that's part of your training. But remember, we were born with a voice. The most important part of the body is the voice of the human. That's what makes us different from other animals, our brain and our voice, as you know. What we say takes hold, and I call it setting a condition. And you can set a condition and achieve a desire just by repeating it over and over again. That's what affirmations are. So perhaps your Pittsburgh listener could learn a little bit more about affirmations and how they work. LouiseHay.com.
Interesting. She did comment one thing, too, about psychic images that she gets and trying to turn the psychic images off.
You don't want to turn psychic images off. You want to learn why you're receiving them and how to work with them. Remember, we're coming into a new dimension. So my suggestion is to start a meditation practice and maybe call a teacher, call somebody that teaches metaphysics so that you could learn why that's happening to you. It's just that you're a little more sensitive than others. Some people can eat peanuts and some people can't. So this is a gift. It's a part of your body. You can't turn it off, but you can work with it. You can slow it down, and you can protect yourself.
With your new book that just came out, is it written from a perspective that a beginner that maybe isn't into meditation or getting to know oneself, is it a good book to start with that takes you from square one?
No, it's not. It's a secondary book. My book to start with, I wrote a trilogy. I wrote all of my classes in 3 books, Opening to Your Intuition and Psychic Sensitivity, Book 1, Book 2, and Book 3. And Book 1 would make a wonderful Christmas gift for your teenager or for anybody that's just learning about the 6th dimension. And then Book 2 and Book 3 take you on further. And if you look at the chapters, which you can do on Amazon.com, you can pick which ones you're attracted to, what subjects are covered that you would like to learn about. And each chapter is its own entity, and it has all kinds of exercises in it to help you to open and grow.
Where can our listeners get your books from, Elizabeth?
On my website or Amazon.com. All they have to do is go to books and type in Elizabeth Joyce, and my books will come up.
Well, again, looking at the overview, again, going through the website, you offer so much stuff that's out there. And again, I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people, myself included, need to get more in tune with things and settle down a little bit.
You can take it a step at a time, Pat. Take it a step at a time. Start at the beginning. Learn about meditation. Learn about your inner talk. Learn about your guides and your angels. And then learn about how to access them and listen to them. That's a start. And learn how the electrical energy of the universe works. And then learn what God is. You can do it.
Do you think
everybody can?
Do you think that in some of these, I've had something happen to me, and I'll just share that with you and a few other people. I've been getting, I don't dream too much at night, but I have, as of late, and it doesn't happen every night, I get visions in the middle of the night of horrific things happening. Of course, out here, our big concern always is, the big earthquake. Of course, there's people that think financial crisis, financial ruin is just around the corner. I don't know if it's just me hearing a lot of these things and being subjected to it, and my mind is playing games, but I've been getting clear visions periodically of mass destruction. What does that mean? Am I going crazy? Am I
Well,
dreaming?
look at what. No, you're not going crazy. Look at what's going on. Look at the television shows. Look at the psychic. Look at the Paris attack. Look at the airplane crashes. Look at the tsunamis. That's what. There's an inner fear of all of that. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think the big earthquake in California is coming yet. I think it may come in the 2020s. I do think that we have to worry about Yellowstone and whether anything happens there, and that's because of the fracking that they're doing in South Dakota and North Dakota. So I do think that we might have some kind of an upset there. But ask yourself what you're afraid of, because an earthquake in a dream is not the same thing as a real earthquake.
Right.
What do you think is caving in on you? And what can you do to control that fear? Because if you fear it, you can bring it to yourself, and you don't want to do that. When I have a vision or a dream, I usually say, thank you for sharing. Tell me how I can use this for the highest good. Maybe you're just getting something about a world event.
Maybe. Because that's all we seem to hear about. We don't. It is sad, but we don't. The media doesn't address a lot of the good things anymore.
Well, sometimes they do.
Yeah, sometimes they do, but I mean, for the most part, a lot of times, it's just, matter of fact, I was just, while we were on the quick break, I was thumbing through MSN, and it was just, well,
That's
of course,
not where to thumb through.
yeah, it was just all doom and gloom,
Right.
It was all doom
It
and gloom.
is doom and gloom, and I've always joked about that. Louise teaches, do not let yourself go to sleep hearing the news as your last thing. Do something wonderful. I have all kinds of things that people can do. I have wonderful music that they can go to sleep to. I have ways how they can read and learn, and how their kids can study easier and retain the knowledge. There's things that you can do to help. And a lot of it is in the trilogy books. They're good books, a good set of 3 books that teaches you just the basics of what you can choose to study more of.
And let you learn at your own pace.
Yes. We all have to learn at our own pace.
Yeah, when it's
But we have to stop the hate and the judgment, and he's different from me, therefore he's no good. Because, if we ever do have an alien land on the planet, what are we going to say? I'm afraid of you, you're different from me, so I'm going to shoot you? You can't shoot aliens anyway. Did you ever try to shoot a moonbeam or a sunbeam?
No.
Isn't that hysterical?
Yeah.
Because aliens are light beings, and they're non-perishable on this planet. I think it's so funny. Every time I think about it, it just makes me laugh.
Maybe we need to see one. Maybe the world needs to see one to make us all.
Well, the world
things.
isn't going to see one together, but you can see it individually as you grow. As you grow, you become more aware of light beings, and light beings have other dimensions and other realities, and they're not a figment of your imagination. And some of them are great teachers.
It's a great big universe out there, isn't it?
Huge. Yes. Supposedly we have 7 inhabitable planets in universe 1, but there's 3 universes. And this is a deep, now I'm going deep, and I really shouldn't, Pat, because I don't know how educated the people are that are listening. But it's interesting to know that knowledge and to just know it. It's not arguable. It's just true.
Right. Interesting. Elizabeth, I've got to wrap it up. The hour went way too quick. I want to thank you for being here tonight and sharing with us. Again, people can go check out your website and get her services at www.newvisions.com.
No, there's a hyphen in the middle.
New-visions.com. And I'd like to get you back again in the near future and talk more about those aliens and the light beams.
Well, I'd love to come back. And also, I do have 2 radio shows with George Noory on Coast to Coast that you can download from Coast to Coast.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you being here. And again, thank you so much for giving up some time tonight for us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I hope to talk with you again soon.
You surely will. Take care and have a
Thank you.
great weekend.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.